Good afternoon, just about, and welcome to Family Law Assistance. My name is Michaela Wade, and I'm the co-founder of Family Law Assistance. And today, I'm joined by the beautiful, the awesome, the incredible Kim. And
I thought you were going to say someone else then, Michaela. I was looking for him. Where are they?
I say this every time, but if we'd have hit the go live button like 5 minutes before we actually go on live, I don't know. I think that's the funniest.
Yeah.
Maybe we should do a live with both of us putting our face on and going, no, those eyebrows are just so not on point today.
They are not related.
So today, this is just a really kind of cash, spilling the tea, dishing the dirt for anyone that's going, well, I was going to say anyone that's going through family law case, get Kim and her bougie blinds.
No, look at my little sign. I'm such a sad geek. I had this from when I used to do makeup lives. So I made myself a little sign.
Wow! Oh my God.
To go with my much more impressive degree certificate and IELTS qualification from like 10 years ago. But
yeah, but it doesn't light up though, does it?
They don't light up when you click a button, no.
You know what you should do?
Change the letters.
Yeah, exactly. You know what you should do? You should have that in different colours.
That'd be amazing. That might be expensive.
I know, but so much fun, right?
I know.
So today we're talking about, we are spilling the tea on not just arsing up your own family law case, but your life. Because let's be real, like your family law case does take over your life anyway. And anyone that's going through family law, oh my God, because you've been with an ex for God knows how long. And let's remind ourselves that at some point you love them enough to have maybe not one, but two, maybe three, multiple children at some point. And then it's funny, isn't it? When you split up, all of a sudden the ex becomes a cartoon character. So we are going to dive in. First of all, we're going to dive in and talk about how to not arse up your case / your life. And we're just going to, Kim.
Not that we're masters of not arsing up our lives.
Speak for yourself, Kim. So, Kim, just tell us sort of what are just a flavour of some of the things that we deal with on the day-to-day basis.
Oh gosh, all sorts of different things. So, I mean, I have to say, I do have a bit of favouritism going on with my cases, and I do love all the children matters. And I think that comes from having been the child in that situation. And you know what? Without getting all teary-eyed, because I do sometimes, I wish someone had asked me. I wish someone had thought about me. Because what people lose sight of, and I see this time and again, people think they're doing it for the kids, but they're not. You know, ongoing conflict is something that causes more harm. And I would say people think, oh, well, I remember someone actually saying, I think it was my mother. She doesn't have Facebook, we're all right. But she certainly doesn't have LinkedIn if we're on there. She said to me that it was all right because I'm pretty much an adult now. But they were talking to me about the case. You know, you shouldn't be discussing adult things. I don't care that I was 15. I think it actually set me back quite a few years what I went through when my mum and dad split up. So I know the importance of people centering the child rather than themselves. And I know that it's a difficult time and it's really hard to not get a bit, I don't know, consumed by your own anger, your own hurt, your own feelings. And you just forget that there's somebody else that actually is connected to you both. Yeah.
Right.
So that's something I see a lot, that people are centering themselves and what they want and thinking about what they want. And I know it's important that it's got to be something that works for you. You know, you don't want to be punishing yourself. You don't want to be getting yourself an agreement that doesn't work for you. But ultimately, you know, it's got to be what is in the best interest of the child, not your best interests.
Right. So I often come on live and I often say to people and clients, you know, look, you've got to be child focused. But I don't know, sometimes I think we need to really break that down, because if somebody is consumed by stuff, their life, the ex, they did this, they did that, can't believe they did this, rah, rah, rah. I guess, just be child focused. What does that even mean?
No, oh gosh, yeah. I mean, that is just that's just me, because it means so much, doesn't it? But I think it all depends. It's a very situational concept, you've got to look at what's going on in the situation, and you can't even do a blanket advice for that, because child focus depends on the child's needs, what is actually happening in the child's life at the moment, what's going on with, I'm going to say mum and dad. It typically is mum and dad, but it could be mum and mum, dad and dad.
Right.
Whoever, what's going on with the people who are the parents. And, I think that's the starting point, really. What your end goal is, where you are at the moment, and then you can kind of reverse engineer it, I think, in a way.
I agree.
Because that's a good way of managing your own expectations of what's going to come.
I agree. It's funny, isn't it? Because having that mindset of being child focused will always then reflect what's happening in a court scenario. So if people are watching this, are going through a court scenario, and they think, well, they might be sitting there thinking, what are they on about? I'm child focused. It's them that's not child focused. And I don't know about
you. It's not child focused, is it?
Right.
I think as well, always focus on, is what I'm going to say or do going to impact my child in a negative way?
Yeah.
I think that's a really good mindset to have.
Right.
And that goes for anything. Sending a shitty WhatsApp message, in anger, phoning and shouting at the other parent in anger, having a snipey comment on handover, digging for information. That's something I've seen quite a lot recently. People digging for information from the child. Stop it.
I know. And I've seen that. I've seen that in a more, I was going to say subtle way, but I've seen the extreme version of that. I remember one case, they got done for it, but I remember one case, one parent had actually put a tracking device into the child's stuffed bear. And you just think, okay, which bit of we're crossing the line here is not clear in any way, So just, you see it all.
Where is the boundary?
Right. Crazy shit. One of the things that I always tell clients, in order to get their head into the right space, even if they don't feel like it is a kind of fake it till you make it, because I imagine there's so many people out there who are like, fuck's sake, I can't believe they're doing this. So one of the things I get people to do is to always start every sentence with their child's name, be it in court, be it in their communications, because I know in some weird way it puts their head shifting into a child's gear. Seeing it in their eyes, because one of the things you said is nobody spoke to you. I bet it felt like nobody had even considered you when you were going through this way back.
I don't think they even did, I don't think they did. I think the whole process was a bit shambolic, and that's not from my parents. That is probably the legal advisors at the time, the solicitors they used.
Right. Because, and that's a really important topic, because especially when people, and I bang on about this all the time, I think it's insane that when you split up from somebody that you have loved, that the only way to resolve those issues is in an adversarial arena like a court. And along with that, I've got a massive issue with it. We are where we are. It's a clunky and not a brilliant system, but it's what we've got. And then sadly, I think you've got a lot of professionals out there who are literally pouring petrol on the fire. They're vamping.
Oh gosh, absolutely. Just last week, and I said to my client, I actually feel a bit sick. There's some absolutely phenomenal, I personally know a lot of fantastic solicitors and legal executives, and I wouldn't hesitate recommending them. But when I see what some people do, ambushing, I can't describe it in any other way, not giving them time to actually even look through the trial bundle with lots of new accusations and horrible things, dumping that on somebody 1.5 hours before a hearing, not letting that person speak or have any reply when a load of accusations are chucked. And I feel like they don't really care about the child. They like the fight. They probably like the money. I don't know.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right. And
I think the role. Sorry, Michaela, I didn't mean to talk over you, but I think our role as legal advisors should be to try and create a better environment for them moving forward. You shouldn't want them to keep having to come back to you loads and loads.
No. So interestingly, I had a case about 2 weeks ago, and I got into court, and the judge my arse hadn't even sat down, and the judge had already decided that I was going to take over the case. Both clients, both parties were litigant in persons, and the judge directed that she kicked us out of court, has negotiation. For some reason, the other side trusted me enough, so much so that negotiations have gone on outside of court. We've had Zoom meetings together, and now I'm bringing it to a successful conclusion. And I don't know, there's just something about that collaborative, let's resolve it, because there's so many people out there that need our help that it just doesn't serve us to keep pouring petrol on the fire. People just want things to move on and get on with their own lives, don't they?
Yeah, they want a life that they can actually move on with. They don't want to think, oh, well, I'll get this and then I've got to fight again. It shouldn't be a lifelong fight.
I know.
It should be a bit of a process, maybe. Sometimes you have to wait a bit longer and revisit things, but it shouldn't be the way it is for some people. And it honestly makes me feel really, really sad.
So moving on to my next point that we see a lot. And by the way, guys, me and Kim at this point are pretty unshockable. There's probably not much that Kim and I haven't seen or can't lip sync with. And something that it always is a bugbear and sometimes a bit of comedy for us is social media, because that's a bear pit of, I'm using, I don't even like air quotes, but I'm going to use air quotes for advice.
What's this?
For social media.
So people giving advice on social media.
Yeah, there's loads of internet groups. There's sort of hate people, the collaborative. There's angry people, and the angry people get together. And then
I've not seen this yet. I've seen more pick my brains people. I get a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people trying to pick my brains. People I have vague connections with, people who I have just mutual friends with, people who I do not know at all. And then they get a bit shitty with me when I say, can you make an appointment? And here's a link and it's going to cost you. But
yeah,
that's all I've had so far. But I am pretty new to being, working for myself in this way.
So I think most people would agree. I mean, even just on a basic level, we've all been there when we split up from the ex, and the first go-to is to go
on Facebook.
And then comes the comments, okay? Because the comments, I think, are funnier than the actual post. And sometimes they start off with, what you want to do is ... I wouldn't have that. You want to take them for everything you got. And the list of kind of venomous hatred that goes along with, or not even that, even when people are slagging off their ex.
Too much telly. You watch too much telly. Go for full custody. Custody? Custody's not a thing.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, social media is just... And the thing is, especially when people are slagging off, I always think that social media, it's not like back in our day, Kim. Like if we did something daft, it wasn't recorded anywhere. That time that I may or may not have fallen out of a cab, blinding drunk, it's fine. No one took a picture of it. It didn't end up on Facebook.
It didn't happen.
I don't remember it, so clearly it didn't happen. But that's the thing. When people stick with stuff on social media now, like it's
that's chucking fuel on your own fire, isn't it? That's chucking fuel on your own fire. You don't need to do that. Surely you've got some mates somewhere you can message, get them round, have a bottle of wine, do it that way. Also, it's there like indefinitely for kids to potentially see. A lot of these people have the kids on the Facebooks and.
Yeah, I'll never forget. I had somebody that was who claimed that they were not an alcoholic. This was years ago. They claimed they weren't an alcoholic, but the picture that ended up in the bundle from Facebook was of said guy with a beer can Christmas tree, with him stood next to the Christmas tree.
That's brilliant. Shouldn't be encouraging this kind of behaviour, but that sounds really funny. But not so funny.
Not so funny in court. They didn't see the funny side of it.
Do you know, you made me think as well about, I might be taking you on a bit of a tangent here, but about abusive behaviours, because I find that quite abusive, going on and slagging someone off online for all and sundry to see. I think that's quite abusive. But I think typically a lot of men, I've done a blog on this actually, men don't recognise abuse in the same way. Women tend to find it easier to recognise abuse. Men don't like to call it out. I don't know if they feel like less manly. I did a bit of research into it, and I just thought it was really shocking, really, that men don't. I've had at least 4 clients in the last couple of months who I would say were victims of abuse that warranted going for a non-molestation order. And they wouldn't. It'll make it worse. How can it make it worse when they can't contact you?
I agree. But you know what? And again, slight tangent, but I think there's just not enough, I don't know whether there's not enough awareness around male abuse.
I think it's not really spoken about as much. Maybe
it should be.
There isn't an awareness, because I think men are pretty rubbish, not because they're rubbish, but they're rubbish at recognising the signs, because they've almost been indoctrinated and conditioned to not understand that that's abuse, to just take it. You know, a woman punches a man, people don't think much of it, but if you saw well, they do think it, obviously they do, but it's not seen in the same light as a man punching a woman, is it?
No. And you know what? I was watching a film, The Holiday. So I watch The Holiday every Christmas. It's just something I do. But there's a scene with, I think it's Cameron Diaz, and she's chucking out her boyfriend. And there's a scene where she's punching her boyfriend repeatedly. This is a scene that often is in many films. And I think, and nobody's okay with it. If it had been the other way round and the bloke was hitting the woman, oh my God, everybody would be in arms about it. You know, it would rightly so be abuse.
Rightly so, yeah.
But when a woman does it to a man, it's
I even thought about it the other day. My husband, the little bugger, crept up behind me, and I'm not even joking when I say I pretty much shit my pants. So he just went in my ear on High Street. So I hit him, but I hit him jokingly, lovingly. It wasn't like nasty. But I thought, how many people were driving past? I didn't even think to check that was what it was.
Yeah.
No one intervened.
Yeah.
And I didn't think after. I went, oh my God, I was just hitting you on the street, and no one even batted an eyelid.
Yeah, isn't it weird about preconceptions? Moving on to something else, I want to just focus a little bit more on sort of people going through cases and just generally not answering your case up. So one of the things that I would say is, and I was saying this to Kim, right? I suppose my top tip for anybody going through family court, shut the fuck up. Because people tend to, obviously, it's very emotional for them. whether you're talking about people's kids, you're talking about people's lives. So of course it's going to be emotional. But with that emotion, unless you've got someone like bossy like me or Kim going, oh no, you don't, or kicking you under the table, it's easy for your mouth to run away with you. Would you agree?
Oh yeah. I think there's a danger of saying too much when a little bit would do.
Right.
And being very focused on what they're actually asking rather than going off on tangents, because I think that's quite common. Rehearsing old arguments and things like that.
Yeah. And the court don't care. Like, they really don't care. What they care about is what you're there in court for. The children or your divorce or your finance. They couldn't give a toss about who said what when in 2015.
Yeah.
And I think people's mouths run away with them. And the other thing is, let someone be guided, someone you trust, obviously us, obs.
Listen.
Oh my God, can we just take a moment?
I'm not saying it to be a dickhead. Just because it's not what you want to hear doesn't mean it's not right.
Exactly. So I suppose, I don't know about you, Kim, but from my point of view, so sometimes with people, I spend a lot of time speaking slowly so that they understand what I'm saying and the ramifications of what I'm saying, especially if I have to maybe break some not so great news to them. And then a lot of repetition. I don't know if you find the same thing, Kim.
I find that I have to be super kind Kim mode. I don't want them thinking that I am being the harbinger of doom and trying to ruin their day or their case. I have very recently, unfortunately, had to break it to one of my clients that I didn't think he was going to get what he wanted.
Yeah.
Not from what I'd read. And, you know, I just thought it needed reframing and going with a different tactic. And, you know, not everyone wants to hear it.
No. And I guess, you know, because of the nature of what we do, we are constantly breaking bad news sometimes to our clients, aren't we? You know, maybe it's not managing expectations is a real thing. You know, sometimes if you support, like, you know, if someone is putting an application in and then they get a hearing and then they expect, well, it ought to be done and dusted in one hearing.
Yeah, I think it's. I also think it's a bit of a difficulty with the way that we work, because we obviously do pay as you go, and people can lean in when they need to, and when they don't. So sometimes someone will come to us and they'll have made their application already, and they'll have already been to a hearing or something like that, and then you look back on what's happened and think, well, I wouldn't have advised us to get to even this point at this juncture.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So we're like picking up the pieces and trying to reshape what they've done. I think that's a good way of putting it. And it doesn't mean it's like backing down or a crap position to take. I am always centering that child, always, because that's what the court's going to aim to do. Right. And anything the court, I always try and think what the court would want, what the court would do, what the court's going to say. And that's the only way really you can play it, because if you're going to go out there and it's almost like being in Las Vegas. You wouldn't go and just put all your money on one shitty odd kind of gamble, would you? You'd hedge your bets, or you'd learn, or you'd be have an awareness of what you're doing. You're not going to go in there and just put all your eggs in one basket for something that is very unlikely that you're going to get.
Completely agree. I love that analogy. The other thing I would say is just
I don't know why I call that. Maybe I just need a holiday.
I'm coming with. Like, if you're suggesting Vegas, it's because you're in Sparkles, Kim.
I think I'm a cabaret singer in the
No. So the other thing that comes to mind then, along with that, is planning. You know the 5 Ps? Piss, poor planning, prevents piss, poor performance. I joke all the time that family law assistance, I swear to God, is the 4th emergency service. People might have known they've had a hearing for like 3 months, but they're going to phone us the day before and go, Kim, can you drive down to...
I've yet to experience this, and you know what? I'm dreading it, because I am the queen of preparation. I do too much preparation, and don't shout at me, undercharge, because I know how my brain works, and I am a bit of a flitter. I jump around all over the place, but I need to know what has happened, what they want. I like to know that. I like to know the whole picture. I don't know if you're like that, Michaela. I think you could just...
I have. I'm different now, but I absolutely was that. But just to use your Vegas analogy, I just had this image that popped into my head where it's a bit like being shoved out onto the stage in Vegas and go, Kim, you've got to sing. We don't know what song you've got to sing. Just sing. And
I find that easy though. But I'd be like, this one.
Yeah. But I think Hollywood's got a lot to answer for, because the real tea is that the magic doesn't happen in the courtroom. Not really. The magic happens in the prep. So I was very much like you, Kim. You know, I needed to know, how can you give me a bundle less than 24 hours before a hearing? Like, seriously. So I was very much like you. So that the magic is in the preparation, which I know doesn't sound quite so sexy, does it? But it's true. The magic is in the prep. The magic is in the strategizing. The magic is in the joined up thinking.
I think you get the best results that way. But obviously, you get best results than if you're going to compare a situation rather than going on your own. It's always better to have someone who actually understands the court process, the court.
Yeah, and then someone to manage you. You know, you sat there all emotional, all angry. And emotional, to work with you to get. And I always say this, I say it doesn't matter who you have by your side, whether it's someone like us, naturally I'm going to say you're going to need someone like us, or whether it's someone else like us, or whether it's someone like a barrister or a solicitor. You've got to feel in that courtroom that they've got you, because you're a team in there. When you're facing and you're sat there, you are a united front. So it doesn't matter who you've got by your side. And that leads me to my final point on this. Make sure you have your proper squad around you, because that's super important. And I caveat that by saying I hate to break this to you, boys and girls. Family and friends may not always be the best people by your side.
Right. That was about to come out of my mouth then. I was about to say, like, you'll remember, I mean, obviously not naming names, but one of my first cases that I dealt with for family law assistance, I was constantly having to explain myself to my client because his girlfriend had a view. She's had this before. This has happened. I'm like, oh my God, who are you listening to? I just said to him, you need to decide. Are you listening to me? Or are you listening to your girlfriend? Because it's pointless paying me if she knows better.
Right. Yeah. And I have actually, so now people think I'm the nice one, okay? But it's so far from the truth. I've kicked people out of consultation rooms, family members, friends. I've kicked them out because I'm thinking our client and their children, that's my focus. That's who I'm there for. Friends and family will have a view.
And they mean well, I'm sure.
They do. And sometimes they are not backwards in coming forwards in that view. And I remember, I'll never forget, I was, where was I? I'm not going to say where I was, but I was in court. And I rocked up to court. I saw the other side. Jesus Christ, they had a whole posse with them. I mean, seriously, it was like a family gathering. Like, you know, like how you have like christening. And you had all the family there. And there was literally like 20 people there. I'm like, seriously. So be careful on who you have in your squad. Kim, who would you say are kind of like, if you were to have the circle of trust with their case, who would you put in that circle of trust?
Who would I put in that circle of trust?
Yeah. Obviously us.
Us. Other people I'd put in that circle of trust. You mean people that are not paying? I would actually have, the friends can have valuable opinions because they're not quite as close to it. Would you include any friends? Because I would. It would depend on who it is. Would you not? Because I don't actually think there's that many people I would have in. But if it was me, I know I've got at least 2 friends who are not afraid to tell me that I'm wrong.
Right. Yeah. So you're right there. I think if you've got friends who think, you know, look, you're being a bit of a dick. Okay. Rein it in a little bit. But often, I would often perhaps not have friends because they have a view, because they want to look after you. So they're not going to have an impartial view. So they may very well want to just dive in and give an advice. I can just see a comment there. So if I'm
just in the comment, that's why my eyes were twitching.
So Nigel, hi Nigel, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Nigel.
You have an expert assessor in terms of substance abusing parents and their fitness. I mean, real expert, not a psychiatrist with a passing interest. Well, that's interesting, Nigel. So I'm not quite sure about your question, but I'll answer it as best I can. So if you're in family court proceedings, you can ask and make an application to have a single joint expert. So it would be a proper psychiatrist, not one with a passing interest, if you thought that perhaps
be able to be someone who wasn't properly qualified. But also they do testing as well, Nigel. So they'd have alcohol testing, if it's alcohol, for example, and drugs. They can find that in hair, unless they shave the head, a month for every centimetre.
I've seen them taken from pubes.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I've seen people come in with a nice new haircut when they knew they were going to get.
I know. I remember having one guy and I went, no, trust me.
Differences will be grown.
Exactly. Like, you have
Don't
not.
be giving tips. They'll be going out and getting the IMAC, Michaela.
I know, right. Oh.
Taking the evidence away.
I know.
Jokes aside, Nigel, sorry, we can't help ourselves sometimes. You have to have a sense of humour in this job.
Very
but
true.
they can do things like that as well. So that it would be coupled with that anyway, I would say. So it wouldn't just be someone with a passing interest and no real experience. It would be someone who is an expert in their field in terms of substance abuse.
Exactly. Right. And on that note, I hope you guys have found that really interesting. We've enjoyed ourselves.
Too much,
I know. So guys, have an amazing rest of your day. If you have got any other questions and you want to book in with either me or Kim, seriously, we'll drop the deets in the
can we say about the free 15 minutes?
Go away, Kim.
We're also re-offering, because this has been done before, but before I was in the team, the free 15 minutes consultation. So if anybody wants to have 15 minutes just with me, just have a bit of a chat about your case and whether we think there's some sort of distance in it that can be run, then please book on. I don't know if you put the details in somewhere for them to book on, but
I'll drop the deets in after our live.
Okay,
yeah. So whether you're going through a court case, whether you've got representation, you think, do you know what, I just need a second opinion, or whether you've been bimbling through court cases on your own and you just think, I can't help it, I can't do any more. Whether you've sitting there looking at your Tesco carrier bag of life and thinking, Jesus Christ, would somebody just take this off me and sort my issues out? I'll drop the deets in, speak with Kim. As you can see, you know, she knows what she's talking about, and that's why I'm so proud that she's part of this team.
Oh, thank you.
I might even get to see her bougie blinds, which I'm kind of obsessed with.
Yeah, the blinds are there, and let me get my little light. And my degree.
Yeah. All right, guys, have an amazing rest of your day. Take care.